Good evening, everyone. This sounds like a lot more fun than most city council meetings sound. So we're going to begin. Hello. Wow. Awesome. Thank you. Welcome. First Monday in April. Hard to believe. And it's 45 degrees outside, but that's okay. Welcome to the Clovis City Council meeting. We're glad that you are here, and we welcome your participation in this meeting. So I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and I will ask Councilmember Pierce to lead us in the flag salute, please. Thank you. Rebecca, will you call the roll, please?
I'll be taking care of that this evening with Carrie being absent.
That does not sound like Rebecca.
No.
Andy, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Baskel? Here. Councilmember Bessinger? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Moanatua? Here. Councilmember Pierce?
Here.
And Mayor Ashbeck?
I am here. Thank you. First up tonight is a presentation of a proclamation declaring April as Community College Month. And that will be read by Councilmember Baskel.
Thank you.
Would you like to come up, Dr. Armstrong, and receive this when it's time? Go ahead.
City of Clovis proclamation declaring April as Community College Month. Whereas, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, across the nation, public community colleges serve over 7 million students. And whereas the California Community Colleges, the largest system of higher education in the nation, with 116 colleges serving more than 1.8 million students, is an essential resource for the state of California, its people, and its economy. And whereas the California Community College bring higher education within the reach of every Californian through their open admissions, low enrollment fees, financial assistance programs, academic and career guidance, outstanding teaching by dedicated faculty, exceptional career training, and specialized support services for students who need extra help with the transition to college or to the mastery of college-level coursework. And whereas the State Center Community College District is one of the largest and successful community college districts in the region, serving over 53,000 students annually at our 4 colleges and centers: Fresno City College, Reedley College, Clovis Community College, Madera Community College, and the Career Technical Center. And whereas the State Center Community College District is a successful provider of educational opportunities for students seeking to enter the workforce and or wish to transfer to a 4-year university. 41% of our students are the first in their families to attend college. And whereas the College of State Center Community College District award more than 400 degree and certificate programs that prepare students for success in their academic and professional lives, and whereas the State Center Community College District trains and prepares thousands of first responders, including police, fire, paramedics, and nurses throughout the valley, and whereas in recognition of National Community College Awareness Month, the State Center Community College District celebrates its successes and many accomplishments in April. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clovis City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Clovis, does declare the month of April as Clovis Community College Month.
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, City of Clovis. And thank you, residents of Clovis. We are proud to be this community's college. We look forward to continuing our partnerships with you in terms of economic development and in terms of providing quality, state-of-the-art, high-class education to you. We are, for 5 years in a row, leading the state of California in transfer rates. We are proud to be here in Clovis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May we shake your hand? Would you like to come up here to shake your hand, please? I feel a photo coming on by Mr. Salinas back there, too. And Stephanie, Yeah, there are probably others in the audience that have a Clovis Community College connection, so come on up, all of you. They're wandering around because we're in the wrong room. Of course they do. Who would not want a picture with this crowd? Really? Block me. Nature Center. Yeah, you bet.
Dr. Armstrong?
Kim, Drew's going to have a comment.
When I got out of the military and I had my GI Bill benefits, the only college I could really go to was a community college. And I was able to get I did some education while I was in the military, and I was able to get my AA from Santa Barbara City College, and then I moved up here and transferred to Fresno State. And I've been a adjunct instructor at the Police Academy for the last 25 years. Having the opportunity to go to a community college and transfer, if that's what you want, is a bargain. And I'm very happy that you're right on our border.
If we could just move that street over just a little bit. Annexation of just a little bit to the, just a little bit. Anyone else? Thank you so much. We are grateful that you have joined our community. I feel like you've been here a really long time. And I love that you come and engage, and I think every meeting that you've been here, we've thought of some way to partner with Clovis Community College, whether it was the forestry students or nursing or whatever it is. So thank you for being present in our community, in your new home, and we are grateful. So thank you. Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much. And to all of you just up here with her, thank you for all that you do to make Clovis Community College, that should be in Clovis but really is in Fresno, a great place. I'm sorry. It's in the name. It's all that matters is the name. Clovis Community College. We've got that. All right. Next up are public comments. This is a chance for folks in the audience to address the City Council on anything that is within our jurisdiction but not on the agenda. And I will note for the record that we have a couple of letters, public comments we received. One from Crystal Reed speaking about the group home and not appropriate for neighbors. We have another from Michael Siemens on chickens, and one from Jeff and Kim Lundeen on opposing the chicken ordinance, or as we revisit that, and a third one from Ron Nault, maybe, also opposed to chickens in Clovis. So we have those, and I think is that all? I think that's all. Okay, so we have that. Anybody online with a public comment, Rebecca? No? Okay. So open it up to folks in the chamber. If anyone has a comment that is in our jurisdiction but not on the agenda, we would welcome you to speak now for 5 minutes or less.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mayor Ashbeck and council members. So the irony does not escape me that I'm here for a celebratory matter. Evidently, I was actually unaware, and unfortunately, a not so celebratory matter. So I am actually a full-time faculty member at Clovis College, and I thought it was interesting that the last 5 years our success rate's so high. I happen to have had the privilege of teaching at Clovis College for the last 5 years, so not to imply.
I'm sure it's you. I'm sure it's you.
Oh yeah. You know, maybe I had a little
Aren't you a physics instructor?
I'm a physics instructor. At
okay, anybody who can get a physics kid to A pass and B transfer has got to be great. So
right.
Well done.
So, yeah,
well done.
We actually just established the transfer degree for physics too. So that was good. Yeah, so I have to say that I don't want to have to be the person that would bring obviously grievances up at a council meeting, but this is what we have to do. So I did submit a proposal to the council by email, and I'm just going to cover a few of the points from it. Obviously, I have only 5 minutes to do so, so I'm just going to hit a few of the points that I have here. If anybody wants more information about what I have here, just consult with me, and I can email this to you. So this is a public concern concerning safety around Freedom Elementary School and beyond at this point is what we are learning. So it's not just something isolated to a small pocket of Clovis. We're learning that this is something that's beginning to spread. So it all started when an event happened at my own personal home where a registered sex offender came to my door at nearly 1 in the morning, knocking on the door, looking through the windows, and trying to, I don't know honestly what, but the police came out, apprehended that person, and took that person to what we learned later was referred to as a halfway home or halfway house by the police officer. So this started a whole saga where basically as we began to find out that this was established without our knowledge, there's been a multitude of problems associated with this halfway house. The council was extremely kind to set up a meeting where on a Wednesday last week, we went over issues concerning this matter, but unfortunately it's far from resolved at this point. I want to bring to the attention of everyone in the room a few things. One is that this is definitely becoming a matter of of interest to a lot of people. For instance, if you go on the YouTube channel for the City of Clovis Council meetings, on average you find that there's maybe 100 or 2 viewings of any council meeting like the one we're in right now. But the one where this issue was brought up has 1,500 views. Tells me people are paying attention to this. I put a post on nextdoor.com and that has 18,000 views and several hundred comments concerning this matter. So all of that obviously can be seen online. We did research the individual who was a sex offender who was removed from that property, but we also did research to find out that the LLC who came and spoke here stated many things that were of great concern to us. First of all, they don't run any background checks at all because their philosophy is that we shouldn't judge a person based on their previous behavior or activities. So that tells us that basically they have the freedom and ability to put anyone they want in that house at any time, whenever they want, for as long as they want. When we began to continue researching this LLC, we discovered that the licensing issue is a very cloudy, unclear situation. They are shown as transitional housing, particularly for elderly people, yet they have a sign on a house that says sober living. We know that they're also housing people who have come out of prison or jail. There's the sex offender individual. It's a very unclear situation, and so we're asking the city, pleading with the city really, to investigate this situation, find out what can be done and what kind of regulations can be put in place that would be long-term and long-standing for the protection of children, for the protection of the community, the neighborhood, and so forth. So this particular house that's been problematic is near a park, near an elementary school, near a paseo, and is neighboring several houses that have children in it. So this isn't like just we're annoyed. This is we're worried about the safety of our community, and we'd like Clovis to take some action. So we know that there are state-level issues. For instance, Assemblyman Patterson reached out to me, let me know that they're going to begin investigating this situation as well. However, here's the one thing that I want to bring to the attention of Clovis at this time, which is that from my reading of the policies that appear, this is on page 12, for the Department of Healthcare Services, states there, it is important to note that while sober living environments or alcohol and drug-free housing are not required to be licensed by DHCS, they may be subject to other types of permits, clearances, business taxes, or local fees which may be required by the cities or counties in which they are located. So we're asking that Clovis would exercise whatever possible means to set up ordinances, whatever it takes, for us to be able to regulate these properties, make sure they're safe for the residents that occupy them as well as the people that surround those houses. Because the LLC openly stated that they're placing elderly, handicapped, schizophrenic, people who are struggling with drug rehabilitation, people, there's a sex offender. So it almost seems like they're just gathering a group of people, putting them all in one place, which is not healthy or safe for them either. So we're hoping that there could be some regulation that would be put in place in that regard. So I think I'm nearing my 5 minutes, and so at this point, I just want to ask that we get some concrete follow-up information pertaining to this. You have my whole packet, so you have all the information. Like I said, that was a 5-minute blurb on something that's 50 pages long here. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it immensely.
You bet. Thank you, Nathan. Are there others who have something to add to Nathan? I can tell all of you that came and clapped to support what he says, but if you have anything else to add, you're welcome to do that. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is Jessica Bro. I live at 3059 Rickert Lane.
Thank you.
I would also like to note that Rayburn and Clovis East and Reagan are within that vicinity. I want to know why I wasn't notified that a sexual predator was living in my neighborhood. This devalues all of our properties. These are $500,000 homes and up. I don't understand why this was placed in our neighborhood. There are lower income housing in Clovis and houses that are at a lower value. So this devalues our property, which in turn will, if we get Prop 8s, we will be able to pay less taxes, which goes towards our community. My daughter and her friend, my daughter is 12, they have had interaction with one of these men. These men were staring at them. I am very distressed about this. I don't know if any of you have ever been molested or raped, but that's not something I'm willing to risk my daughter with. If this LLC is making all this money off the state of California through grants and through what these individuals are making, why can't they go buy land away from our communities and set up low-income housing? Why can't the city, for that matter? There has to be something we can do so we can keep our children safe. Our children are walking to and from all these schools. All these schools are within half a mile. I am terribly distressed about this, and there has to be a solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hello, Mayor Ashbeck.
Nice to see you.
Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My name is June Van. I live at 2635 Coventry Avenue.
I'm Eric Van. I also live at the same address.
Most of the time, unless he's out of town working. Anyway, the one thing I've been working with Dr. Enan when I found out about this issue. One of the first things that someone asked me is why this concerns me when I don't have children in the Clovis City school system anymore. We moved here in 2001 after vetting many cities to relocate from our hometown of Santa Cruz, which we were priced out of. We came here. I was 40, Eric was 45. We bought our first home. With our two teenage daughters, they went to Rayburn and Clovis East. Since then, they have moved out of the area. I have 5 granddaughters, which I don't get to see very often. Thank God for FaceTime. But somebody asked me why this issue concerns me. And my response was, because this concerns all of our children. I consider, as a community, that we need to protect all the children. And at first, this was just about the sex offender, until Dr. Nathan has uncovered, with hours of time, a lot of information about these homes that the public is unaware of, and it is very concerning. We are also concerned about the individuals in these homes. If there have been 14 calls coming from within the home, there are issues.
I would like to say that we have learned that these homes are going to be popping up everywhere. They're going to be popping up in your neighborhood. They might be next door to you because there's no regulation There's nothing that's set forth to control these. Anybody can open a home and bring these people there, and it's just a free-for-all. And I think something seriously needs to be done, starting at a local level with Clovis City. Hopefully they can give us the help we need, and then going statewide with this, because this is not acceptable. I don't want to live in any community where these people are just allowed to run amok and, you know, live wherever and do whatever, and they're not regulated. Like my wife says, they're not being helped, they're not being trained, they're not being taught, they're not being supervised.
Counsel?
They're not getting any help. They're just living there and blah. It's not a good thing. So we hope the city council can help us come up with some sort of solution for this situation.
Thank you. Thank you. You have 30 seconds. Go.
Oh, one of the things that I most wanted to point out is moving here to Clovis, choosing Clovis to relocate to. Clovis checked all the boxes. I love the fact that we are a community that supports one another. I am working on another issue that is coming up regarding backyard chickens, which I am in opposition of. But I know there's people in attendance that have the complete different opinion that I do. But yet we all came together as a community for this issue. And for me, that is what the Clovis way of life is all about. And I want to see it kept that way.
Thank you both.
Please do what you can do to protect us. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, thank you. Other comments? We see you here. Please.
Hi, my name is Charlene Tringali, and I live at 3179 Ashcroft Avenue. I just want to say that, I'm concerned for the safety of my family with this home in the neighborhood, with it not being regulated, with it not being watched over. My husband's frequently out of town, which leaves me alone with my children, and it's kind of a terrifying thought to know this is just, a few doors down. I have a friend who lives across the street nearby another facility like this, and I'd asked her if she's, experiencing issues with hers, and she actually has worked with some of the women in that house. But she said it seems like it's not really regulated, and the sober part of the living isn't really enforced. She said she doesn't think it's actually transitional living because nobody's working to get them to the next step. It's problematic because there's a high turnover rate, and some of the women really shouldn't be living on their own, and there's lots of conflict between the majority of them. So I feel like this is, they're just kind of lumped together. It becomes a volatile environment inside the house, which expands into our neighborhoods. So I ask for your help in helping us.
Thank you, Charlene.
Thank you.
Yeah. Others on this issue?
My name's Erica Enan. I live at 3099 Ashcroft Avenue, and obviously, as you know, we share a fence with these people. One thing I haven't seen brought up much that they shared in the meeting last time was that they are housing people with very, very serious mental health issues such as schizophrenia. If you have any experience with schizophrenia, you know how serious, how easily they are triggered if they are not monitored and taking the medication appropriately. You cannot throw people with such a serious diagnosis in with a bunch of cancer patients and people that are veterans and PTSD. That's not fair to them. I mean, for the people in this house, no nurses, no staff. Who's monitoring their medications? Who's monitoring them in general? I mean, that's a very serious question. If you are actually going to help people, and my degree is psychology, I'm in school for that. That's my love, my passion. I get it. I want to help these people too, but throwing them in a home mixed around with other diagnoses is unfair. You can't do that to people. I mean, everybody deserves a chance for sure, but the right way, managed correctly. And what I'm seeing is they aren't managing it correctly. I mean, you have to have nurses. I mean, I have firsthand experience with this in residentials and all that stuff. They are always, they have nursing staff. They have people passing out medications. They have monitoring. They have notes. It doesn't seem like any of that's going on here. And I think that really needs to be looked into. Not for just them, but for the neighbors as well. Thank you.
Erica. Yeah, thank you so much. Any others? Last call on this? Is there a hand out in the lobby or just somebody waving at each other? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you all for this. I'm going to ask John, our city manager. I do want to thank the neighbors for rallying, and I want to thank you for rallying respectfully, right? We've seen these, it doesn't take long for this to go from 0 to 60, like, whoa. So it's complicated. And to, I apologize, you, the first woman who spoke, the state of California makes this hard to regulate. So nobody told you because nobody has to tell you. So it isn't like you were left out. It's very complicated. But I think what might be helpful, if you can, John, maybe speak to sort of what our next steps. I know Corporal Roseno did a really excellent job at the meeting. It's probably helpful to get kind of the level set of what we can do and what we can't do. And your proposal has some actions that we're not going to take tonight. But maybe, John, can you speak to how we can keep the eye on this and tell you the resolution that's possible for the city and not possible, because it's not all going to be possible, but how we can move this along and keep our eye on it for you, because that's what you asked us to do.
First of all, Doctor, I'm not sure we received your proposal. We might have gotten it later in the evening, so I don't think my city council has seen the actual proposal. The way that we manage this in the city of Clovis is going to be that it's a code enforcement issue that we track. I would propose that possibly we could sit down with the doctor later this week and take a look at his proposal and look further into some of the ordinances that you had suggested. But I'd also ask from the police department, Dave or Andy, if you have anything to add other than getting together with the doctor and explaining what we can and cannot do.
Yeah, I can jump in. So the city's current ordinances are consistent with what the doctor had talked about, but some recent state law has limited the city to enforce that law. So AB 686, yes, AB 686 was passed, and the State Department of Housing and Community Development has passed down rules that limit our ability to regulate this on a land use basis. We have reached out to the state licensing body that licenses these types of homes. I want to give credit to Dave Roseno for all that work to see about them being licensed and if they're following that policy. So we are working on that. In addition, the state doesn't allow us to do a business license. So as you mentioned, Mayor, there's very limited ability. But we are talking to our elected officials at the state level to see what can be done to try and move forward.
So it makes sense that Andy has your point of contact. We can reach out to you tomorrow, set up a meeting, and we can kind of talk about what your proposal is, and kind of going back to what I said earlier, what we can and cannot do, and maybe if we could use you as a tool to communicate with the rest of your community, it would be advantageous for everybody, and then we'll take it from there.
So I think we will look for what we can do. I think you as advocates, Assemblymember Patterson is your assembly person. So I think you helping us, we have one voice, but you have a whole bunch of voices. So I think the advocacy to our state elected officials is super important. So I think that is right. And then I think from the city's perspective, while we can't have well, I would just like to know what we can and can't do. If we can't have a business license, that's one thing. But in the old days, you used to have a home occupancy permit. So if you wanted to be a seamstress or an accountant or cut people's hair in your house, you had to get the 10 neighbors on either side of you to sign a letter that says, yes, they're going to have a daycare. Well, I don't know, that doesn't exist. Can you not do that anymore?
That does not exist anymore.
No, not for this use.
Because, well, anyway, so I think there's something we could figure out, because that was, I mean, if there was a daycare next to my single-family home, I'd want to know that as well. So I think hold on a second, I think there's maybe some things we can at least explore, and maybe they're not possible, but we can at least take a look. So, Nathan, if you are willing to sort of be the contact with the neighbors, but we hear you. We will, I think the council, I don't know that exactly, but the public comment is closed. If you don't mind just holding on 1 second. You know, I think we are of shared mind to make this as safe for all of our kids, to your point, June, but there will be limits, and so you as Californians need to understand what those are too, because we do live in this state together, and that's another place we live together. So if you're willing to do that, Nathan, so we'll kind of keep working on it, and we'll come up with some actions that we can or maybe we can't do, and then we'll kind of figure out what to do from there. Yeah, deal? All right, yeah, you bet, you bet. And you have another public comment, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I did.
Can you come back up here then? Sorry, 1 minute.
Well, you keep this is an LLC, and you keep mentioning, business licenses and home occupancy and all of this stuff. Does this LLC have these credentials? If not, they're a for-profit business. This house is residential. It's not zoned for commercial. Is there anything we can do with that?
I think that's the point, right? You can cut hair in your house and it becomes a business. So it doesn't seem quite as, it seems like it should, I think, if you don't mind, I want to end this conversation right now, but I think it's not quite as straightforward as it seems. So we will see what's possible, but at some level we'll do as much as we can, I think, as a city, but we can't do more than the state will allow. So there's that. So I think that's what we're trying to balance. So stay with us, and I want to commend staff. I think I talked to you on a Saturday on Nextdoor app, and I talked to John Saturday on email, and then Monday you were at council, and Wednesday you had a community meeting. So that's good. I hope thank you for joining us, because we are concerned about this. So yeah, you bet. All right. Okay, so thank you for all of those comments. Is there anyone else who has a public comment not on this item, something else they want to talk about? All right, well, seeing none, and there was no one online still, Rebecca? No. All right. Thank you all for being here. The next item is ordinances and resolutions. With respect to these resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Next up is consent calendar. These items are routine in nature. They're placed on the consent calendar, and they're voted on as a single action item unless someone on the council or in the audience wishes to pull an item. Anyone on the council wishing to pull anything from items 2 through 7? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak specifically to anything on items 2 through 7? All right. I'll take a motion in a second if there is on a consent calendar.
Motion to approve consent calendar. I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Under administrative items tonight, the first is a conversation really for the City Council to consider options to seek additional funding for police, fire, streets, and parks. And the staff tonight on this is Andy Hasler, and our role tonight as a council is to consider the discussion and provide policy direction. Andy.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So a little bit of background to jump into this.
Andy, can I get a question real quick from Scott? You know, with the conflict of interest, if potentially in the next year we're going to receive funds from the union, does that exempt us? Are they, because of those laws?
Yeah, labor unions are considered exempt under that, under SB 1439, correct.
But if someone personally then, who is a police officer, gives us more than $250, does that also exclude us from participating?
I wouldn't.
This stuff is, I was kind of confused.
That individual officer, that individual person that's giving a donation, wouldn't be receiving a license or a contract or a permit or anything if you were to decide as a council to put a measure on the ballot, if it ultimately gets that far.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background. At the February 13th, 2023 meeting, council asked to discuss revenue options for the city of Clovis, and this was in response to the police chief's stated need for additional resources. So tonight we'll be reviewing the city's discretionary revenues very briefly, discretionary expenditures, types of taxes and passage rates, and potential revenue amounts. And the goal is to seek direction for staff on potential revenue increases. So real quick primer on city revenues. The blue portion of that pie graph is the discretionary revenues the city receives. That's about $67 million for that last full year. Of that, most of it is property taxes and other taxes. Other taxes include sales tax, hotel occupancy tax, business license tax, and franchise taxes. On the expenditure side, the use of discretionary revenues, 87% is used for public safety, that's both police and fire, and the balance is used for other governmental activities such as economic development, general services, planning and development services, and public utilities, which is mostly street lighting and street maintenance. One revenue option for the city is to raise taxes. With voter approval, the city of Clovis may impose a variety of taxes. Taxes fall into one of two categories, general or special. So the types of taxes. A general tax is an unrestricted use of funds. That means council can choose where those monies are spent, much like our general fund now. The majority voter approval required is 50% plus one vote to pass. And it must be consolidated with a regularly scheduled general election. So for Clovis, that would be November of 2024, would be the next opportunity. The special tax is the use of revenues as for a specific purpose, such as police, public safety, parks, mental health services, et cetera. It requires a 2/3 supermajority voter approval, and you can set a special election for that. It could be previous or off cycle. Sales and use taxes. It's a tax on sale of goods. Clovis' current rate is 7.975, and Fresno is 8.35%. California's state sales tax is 7.25, and then there's add-ons to that, such as Measure B or Measure C locally here. Depending on the local sales tax jurisdiction, the total tax rate can be as high as 10.25%. They can be adopted via special or general election. Transit occupancy tax. It's a percentage of hotel revenues or short-term lodging charges. There's no cap on this. Currently, Clovis is 12%. It was recently increased in November of 2022. It can be done as a general or a special. A utility user tax. Clovis does not have one of these. You can impose a tax on utility services, including electricity, gas, water. About 150 cities levy these, and they vary from 1 to 11% of the utility being used.
Are those utility taxes for any, I mean, they could be for, they don't have to be for utility kind of use. It's not water infrastructure. It can be for any city use, but just imposed on the utility part. Okay.
Correct. It can be a general or a special tax.
Okay. But not related to utilities.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, just it's collected via your utility bill. A parcel tax, it's a special tax on a parcel or unit of real property. They're generally based on a flat rate per parcel. These require 2/3 voter approval, even for general purposes. So it'll just be added to your property tax bill. Landscape and lighting districts, it's a fee for a specific service that property owners vote on. It requires a 50% plus one. We have several districts, LMDs, as we call them here locally, that pay for landscaping in the city. You could add lighting as an item on those expenditures and increase rates, but it does require 50% plus one to pass of the voters, and those are property owners generally. So here's some success rate examples. So we have data going back to 2018. These are statewide. This kind of shows you the green bars are success, the beige or taupe color is the fail rates. So you'll see the sales tax is always toward the top on these charts as we go through them as a very popular option that cities are pursuing. So that was 2018. Cannabis went away and sales tax took over as one of the most popular. And then just this last year, we had school bonds take over as the most popular with varying rates. Sales tax general always seems to be at the top of the list because of the 50% plus one rule versus the 2/3. But there's a lot of different options here that cities have pursued in increasing tax rates. This is a look back over time. You can kind of see the overall approval ratings going through this. It seems like we're kind of getting back to what was normal. 2016 and 2018 may have been a little bit of a high year, maybe even to 2020, but with the 69%, that's getting back more to the typical averages previous to that. So overall, in 2022, general taxes were approved by voters 81% of the time when we add up all those different categories. And in 2022, special taxes were approved by voters 47% of the time. And like I said, it appears to be returning to historic norms on overall approval ratings. Another option is for the citizens to impose via an initiative. In 2020, the city of Fresno passed Measure P, and a judge determined that a special tax could be passed by the voters at 52%, not the 2/3. It's a simple majority, so that's a little bit of a difference between a city initiative versus a resident initiative. So this is pulled from the police department when we went through the the Citizens Advisory Committee on the ongoing needs that the police department was looking for, just for frame of reference. So 13 million, this could be slightly up or down depending on where we're at, but I just grabbed it for a reference point. In relative to revenues. So a sales tax measure, a 1% sales tax increase would generate approximately 25 million. That's based on a 5-year average of our sales tax revenues. And a parcel tax at $200 per year would be 7.2 million. Occupancy tax, a 2% increase from the current 12 would increase revenues $450,000 to $550,000 per year. A utility user tax, just an example, $10 per month would generate 4.3 million per year. And a landscape and lighting district would have to be paid for actual services, so we just looked at how much we're paying for street lights out of the general fund, and that's $1.5 to $2 million per year currently. A little note on volatility. Not all the taxes produce a guaranteed amount of revenue. The most volatile tax types include occupancy tax and sales tax. A parcel tax, a utility user tax, and the LMD lighting districts are less volatile for the city. A little bit on timing. We would need to be in position by August 1st of 2024 for council to act to put anything on the November 2024 ballot. And some options for council to consider. To direct staff to evaluate revenue options in preparation for a ballot initiative to increase revenues, or to direct staff to including funding of $200,000 as a ballpark amount in the 23-24 budget for consulting services to evaluate the feasibility of the various revenue options. And with that, staff's available for any questions.
Thanks, Sandy. Questions for staff?
Andy, when it comes to utility taxes, if I live in an apartment, whoever owns that apartment building is going to pay the utility tax on each and every one of those apartments, correct? I don't pay directly. I can pay indirectly, but not directly, correct?
It depends on how the utility is set up. If it's in the name of the property owner, then you are correct. But if it's naming the individual, such as electricity bill, then it would be on that individual.
I guess most people get, if you're an apartment, your water bill is generally in the name of the property owner, but your electric bill is in your name. So if I live in rental property, in an apartment, I would still pay, I guess, my fair share, if you want to look at it that way.
Yes.
We could also, when do we expect our PERS to start coming down? Was it 2030?
10 years.
Or something?
10 years.
10 years. So we could conceivably do something because we did this before when we built the police and fire headquarters, and we did it for a limited time, for a limited purpose, to pay off that. So, I mean, we have the option to do that too. I mean, it seems to me that this is something that probably getting a consultant to do, to come up with options, because just real quick numbers, with the numbers you gave us for a 1/4 sales tax, which would still leave us below the city of Fresno, if my math is correct. Plus the TOT, and I factored TOT, the motel tax, not at the top rate, but kind of in the middle, it would give us 23 positions initially, and then it would go, then that's at 300,000 per, and then when it goes down, we could add on. I'm not the guy to do the math, frankly. But I mean, that 23 positions plus what we would normally in a good budget put in could get us to where we're at. It would be nice for us to know and for the citizens to know, okay, what are our options? Because when people say, I'm already paying enough, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, at one point I was getting 5 W-2s, and I looked at my accountant and I said, what am I not doing? He says, you need to quit working. Because that's what ends up when you make money, you end up paying taxes. And I know that there are people going, I already pay enough. But we're going to come to the point where, and I realize this is more of a narrative than a question. But we have to make a decision. I don't want to be on the council that oversees us losing our safest city in the valley. So that's kind of my thought.
Matt, do you have a comment?
Yeah, and I would agree with a lot of what Drew was saying there. The sales tax, I'm sorry, how much would that generate? The 0.25%? Trying to look it up on the document here.
So sales tax, a half cent would be 12.5 million.
So, I mean, conceivably, and we talk about sunset clauses and whatnot, it would probably be better not to have a sunset clause if we were to go down this road of a general tax of 50+1, because who knows what would happen 5 years from now with the state changing. They were wanting to change it to everything being 2/3 and along those lines. So, and then, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, we're also going to have another fire station that wants to be opened up with the growth of the city. So these are all the other things that come into play when it comes to trying to finance public safety overall. We all know that from the police department standpoint, it's no secret, everybody, we've been, talking about being short-staffed for many years, and, the men and women of the police department continue to do all the good things that we ask them to do, but we're definitely at a point where we have to come up with something, and, if it's not, we got hit with PERS, but a lot of things that people don't realize about the PERS is that it's expensive for the city, but the employees also pay 17% of their wages for that retirement system. So it's not just expensive for the city, it's expensive for the employee too. So just my thoughts on that.
And if I could just add, what staff would be looking for is just some general direction, because all these details will be decided upon when we likely bring a consultant on board who would go out and do an analysis or survey to kind of figure out would likely be most successful. And so kind of looking for just general direction and also looking for if there's anybody opposed to moving forward with this, just so we know that more on the front end of it than the back end of it. And if you give us direction to proceed, we'll put it in the budget for next year. We'll begin the process and bring something back for you to consider. And the only other thing I was going to mention on the sunset is going to be that with the 2024, the roundtable, California roundtable, that's a change in the laws requiring the 2/3 and stuff. It also includes a requirement to have a sunset in there, so that even our Measure B with the TOT would, if it gets passed, would be invalid because it does not have a sunset on it. So if you're going to, I don't know if I would necessarily look at the 10-year window. I would propose a 20, 25-year window if we're going to put something out there.
So, John, just to follow, so in 2024, when that proposition passes, it's retroactive? So,
correct.
Okay.
I think it's
okay.
January of 22.
Yeah.
Scott, help me out.
It's purportedly retroactive. I guess I would say that's going to be tested if it gets approved.
Okay.
So there's a number of cities, I think, in Clovis's situation that have a measure that passed in 2022 that may have not had a sunset provision, such as the TOT measure in Clovis, or even though Clovis's measure did pass with more than 2/3, you may have other cities that might have had a sunset provision in theirs, but it didn't pass with 2/3. So there's any number of measures that probably pass throughout the state that could potentially be invalidated, and again, that would have to be tested.
You know, the title, Andy, is saying police, fire, streets, and parks. Are you also looking for us to try to see if we want general, or are you wanting direction also like, hey, make it strictly more of a special tax for police?
Yeah, I think that's for council's discretion, and maybe for the consultant to really look at to see what would be the most successful, if that's the path that council directs us on.
And that'd be my recommendation, is to not make those kind of decisions tonight. Allow us to go back and take a look and have a consultant actually provide us what they think would be most successful, whether it be a general or a special, and dedicated to what.
Okay. On the utility tax, can that be also for any use, or does it have to be utility related?
It can be for any use, just collected via the utility bill.
Okay. And then, will it be the consultant who will potentially look to see if there is a citizen group that potentially can move it, or is that something we discuss here, or?
That would probably be something separate that a consultant would not look at. It would have to be a grassroots effort outside the city that would make that happen. It's not something the city would initiate, let alone, or a consultant that we hired.
So how would we know that time frame? Because they're going to have to go get signatures, and can we also get information on that? Should that be a course to take? Because even if we do a special, the threshold is lower with the citizen-driven. So if and when we get the second report, or I just want that time frame so that way we know we need to engage the public too.
And just to give you an idea, it's going to be that the time frame associated with city initiative or the city position moving forward, or the initiative is going to be the same with the exception. And it's approximately August of 2024, which we have to have all the information to the county to get the item on the ballot. The difference between a city-initiated versus an initiative by a grassroots effort would be that the time frame associated with them gathering the required number of signatures.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I'm for this, so just for the record.
I was just going to say, I think maybe a consultant in the kind of surveying of the options could identify that maybe the most viable option is citizen-driven. So I think you might get that in just a general survey of options.
Sure.
Just like all the things that you put up there as well. Yeah. Diane, you have comments on this?
Yeah, can you clarify what you just said about the difference between the threshold with the law you were talking about? What is that changing?
Okay, you're talking about the California Business Roundtable,
yes.
That proposed initiative going forward, and it's going to be on the ballot in November of 2024. And one of the things that it does include there is kind of an overwhelming transformation of how taxes are being instituted by cities or any jurisdiction. And a couple of those provisions are going to be that, and Scott, you help me out here, but it's going to be that pretty much everything's going to require a 2/3 vote versus the 50% plus one. That's one. And two is going to be that the look-back provision, which means that anything that was approved between January of 2022 through November of 2024 has to meet the requirements of what's included in that legislation.
So that would mean a general tax that received 53% and passed in the look-back would then become invalid because it didn't reach the new 2/3 threshold.
Correct.
Okay. For the record, at this point, and again, like you say, we're talking in generalities, we don't have specifics in front of us, I would be disinclined to want to be behind a general tax. I think that we have a community that has made it very clear that public safety is incredibly important to them. It's one of the top issues that we hear all the time. And, I mean, even to a degree, that's what we've already heard this evening in public comments. And so I think that just for me, like I say, without knowing specifics, and so certainly not saying anything for certain, but I think the concept of a special tax where we make a commitment through the process of saying this is what these dollars will be for, I think that kind of commitment with the taxpayers, to me, is important. I recognize the difficulty of reaching the two-thirds threshold regardless, before or after that might pass, but I think that also puts an importance on the whole process of saying this is so important that we do want the super majority of the community to buy into this with us. So I actually see those in kind of an odd way as a positive part of that special tax, and so that's kind of where my head is at this point, if that's kind of the direction you're looking for.
Thank you.
I don't have much else to add. I think we know our first commitment is keeping people safe, and we don't have enough money. So it's not much more complicated than that. And I think our current revenue streams are really not sustainable. And I also don't want to be here in 10 years going, well, we used to be a really safe place and now not so much. So I think we have an obligation to explore. So I think that seeking a consultant who could do kind of even like a landscape assessment of our community, there's so many moving parts, because now you have Fresno State's Measure E. You have a large question looming on Measure C. Will it come back? Will it not come back? I just think there's lots of moving parts that could change any one course of action. I think it's too early, but I feel like there's some sense that exploring alternative revenues makes sense, and a consultant who could help us figure out options is important. And I think, do you have a slide that you would put that in next year's budget so we wouldn't be able to start that till June?
Correct. July, actually.
Or July, I mean,
we could go out with an RFP and get the process started, assuming that, it's approved in the budget, but I wouldn't officially spend any money until after July 1st, and it would mean that we would be back to City Council probably in the fall of 2023, and then, continuing over the next 6 months to determining how we want to go. And the only other comment I was going to make is, ironically, is going to be that a general tax is approved at approximately the 70% level, Andy, and it's like, it seems like it's backwards. A special tax is approved at the 50% level. So 80% of the time people vote in support of a general tax, and only 50%, and part of that's going to be requirement because to get to the two-thirds. But
Mayor, could I add one thing?
Yeah.
If there is a consultant and we have that proceeding, I would want to also be considerate of the fact, I think it's a fact, that this isn't merely a financial problem. It's not just can we fund the positions, that there's also a recruitment and retention problem just in terms of finding the quality of candidates to fill those positions. And so I would like to see that and just kind of what we know to be the national culture when it comes to respect for law enforcement. I know we're very fortunate here in Clovis that we have incredible respect for the men and women who serve us in all areas of public safety and throughout the city. But I believe that is a challenge that the city has to consider moving forward to, just the simple fact of finding those quality candidates to recruit and train and to serve the public. So if somehow that can factor into the report as well, I think that would be helpful.
All right, so I think you have some direction from the council. Let's open up to the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this discussion of future revenue options for public safety? Thoughts, comments? We'll have lots of chances to weigh in if we proceed, but all right. I'm not seeing anybody. Anybody online?
No.
All right. Yeah.
Andy, can you say on the record, potentially, if a general tax gets passed, even though our intention as the initial council who passes it, what could potentially happen with those funds, say in 4 years after it passes? Can the next council direct those funds to any need of the city?
They would be treated as general fund revenues. So they would be at the discretion of the council, that budget.
And, I know that for me, I think it needs to be a special tax. I think it needs to be for safety. And if the consultant comes back with a general, I would be very hesitant to place that upon our citizens, because I think our sale is for public safety, and I think we need to honor that. So I would push that the consultant come with more of how do you get a special tax passed other than how do you get just a tax measure passed? Because 50%, I think this city is going to vote for, especially we say it's for safety. But I think we need to be able to honor and keep our city safe. And I'm leaning, I want to say 80, 90% towards a special tax. So I just want to put that on the record. Can I?
Yeah.
I think you're right, Vong. I was heavily involved in the measure 20 years ago, and I think it was 73% of our voters voted yes, and it had a sunset clause. And as soon as we paid off the building, we were done. So I think we have a good history of trustworthiness on that, so I think your point is well taken.
I just wanted to make one other point, in, discussions of a special tax. A special tax can actually be done at a special election. So it could potentially be a March 2024 or something like that.
That's a political calculation once you figure out what to do when you felt like the environment was best to try to do that. Matt, do you want to make another comment?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Don't need a motion right now? No, we just need direction.
Okay.
So I was going to say, good job,
I was
though.
going to say, make a motion for direction to go get a consultant.
So I think you have consensus that there's interest to proceed to gather information on options. I mean, it might come back that a partial tax is the best idea ever. I don't know. So let's just see what a consultant can teach us about our options, and we'll go from there. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Andy. I didn't mean to shut you down. If you really wanted to make a motion, I guess you could. I don't know what it would be for, though. Just kidding. All right. Matt.
It's coming back.
Stop it. All right. Our next item, I got sidetracked by that comment, Councilmember Baskel, is to consider a request from the 500 Club located at 771 West Shaw Avenue, Clovis, California, to have the city call, speaking of elections, a special election on November 7th, 2023, to place on the ballot for voters to consider an increase in the number of allowed gaming tables from 20 to 51. And this is also a consider and direction kind of item. And John, looks like you're the staff person on this?
Yes. Mayor, before we get started on this, I wanted to ask if there's anybody in the audience here from the 500 Club for this item. And then Rebecca had also asked if there's anybody online from the 500 Club.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'll go ahead and proceed then, because I wasn't sure, because there's been some things that have come up. But since we do have a representative, we have legal counsel from the 500 Club on the phone. What I'd like to do would be to kind of talk about the 500 Club. The 500 Club is a historic card room dating back to the 1950s with the Sorrentos family. It was originally located on 500 Clovis Avenue. You guys all know where that's at. About 10 years ago, it was relocated and expanded to 771 West Shaw, expanding it from 6 tables at the old location to 20 tables currently at a new location. Like I said, it's currently authorized up to 20 tables. We have received a request from the owners to expand from 20 to 51 tables. There's a short window to allow the expansion, and that would be through the end of this calendar year. Their legal counsel will explain some of the details when he comes on. It does require a vote of the residents at a special election, which would be the November 2023 election. Staff is estimating, based on the last standalone election we had, it was approximately $350,000 because we're not sharing any cost with anybody else. And that's another thing to throw into the last discussion. If we were to have a special election, it would be approximately this cost compared to $75,000 in a regular November election. Next slide, Andy. I asked I had a plug in here from last week. Basically, I asked the city attorney what options do we have to fund the cost of the election. The feedback that he gave me today is that we do have a vehicle that we could use to charge the applicant for the election. I'm guessing the applicant might ask for the city to fund it. The staff would be recommending that we don't fund it, even though it is a significant revenue source for the city. It's just it'd be difficult for me to recommend spending $350,000 on an election where I'm not sure the results would be. And if the direction this evening is to move forward, staff would come back and call the election later this summer. Of late, like Thursday, was contacted by the owner of the 500 Club, and there is an AB 431 that was introduced last week that is similar in its look-back provisions. That would mean that if everything went well, and we went to the voters, and they approved the expansion from 20 to 51 tables, and this legislation was approved, it would completely invalidate that increase from 20 to 51 tables. And so talking to the property owner, the owners of the club, they weren't sure they were going to go tonight, but with that, I'd like to hear from their legal counsel, and then after hearing from the legal counsel, I'd like to hear from council on what their desires are to move forward on the request from the 500 Club. That concludes staff's report, and staff is available for questions.
John, could you or would the applicant kind of speak to why now? Like, is that in the, it's in the letter from the legal counsel, but can you just say that out loud, or?
It's a little bit complicated, and he can explain it, but historically what happens is on an annual basis, there is a moratorium on any expansion to card rooms statewide. For whatever reason, last year, they didn't implement that annual moratorium, so that means that as it stands right now, there is no moratorium, so it's that short window of this calendar year to be able to expand from the 20 to 51. And then, you know, he'll also probably speak to the relocation of Club 1 from downtown Fresno to where it currently is, nearly adjacent to our current location. Scott, did I miss anything on that?
No, I guess just to provide maybe a little bit of background for those that may be new to card rooms. So Clovis's ordinance obviously dates back several decades. And then I think it was 1999, the state issued a moratorium. They said no more card rooms. Any cities that had existing card room ordinances, you could continue. There was subsequent legislation that allowed for some expansion of those existing card rooms. So Clovis did take advantage of those expansions over the years to get up to 20 tables. But at this point, there's no further expansions allowed, except by going out to a vote of the people. And then again, as John said, there was a state moratorium for all those years, for about 23 years, I think, that lapsed. The legislature did not extend that moratorium last year, but then there's discussion, and John mentioned the bill, I think it's AB 341, that is proposed to reinstitute that moratorium January 1 of 2024 with some, I guess, teeth to it that would potentially, again, retroactively impact, even though currently, right now, a city could put a ballot measure on and get it approved, this legislation, if approved, would purport to retroactively undo that.
Right now, AB 341 says mandatory recycling, but I'm pretty sure that's not the same bill, so we'll...
It's 431.
431, oh gosh. John, your staff report also spoke of clearly the location at 771 West Shaw does not hold 31 more tables.
50, yeah.
So can you just comment on that? Again, the applicant may chime in, but can you just, from a staff perspective, they would relocate, obviously, in the city of Clovis. Obviously, we're doing this for that.
Right. It would only be allowed in the city of Clovis, and the current location on 771 Shaw Avenue would not accommodate the expansion of 251 tables. I think that the applicant or the owner just wants to have it in place so that they have an option. Could be 3, 5, 7 years from now where they find a location where they can go in and own it and expand and be a little bit more competitive to Club 1 down the street.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Any other questions for staff? I just totally monopolized that. All right. We will open the public portion. Anybody, I guess online, we'll start with the applicant, I assume, online. If you can bring them into the conversation, that would be great. All right.
I have Jarrett Balonian ready for you.
We're ready.
Go ahead.
Jarrett, hello. Good evening. Uh-oh.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, there we go. Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right.
If you don't mind stating your name and address for the record, that would be great.
Hi, Jared Blanian, 1961 Maple Glen Road, Sacramento, California, on behalf of the Clovis 500 Club. As you guys kind of touch upon it, in 1996, the legislature placed a moratorium on the expansion of card rooms that prohibit a city from expanding past the limit of gaming they had in 1996. That moratorium has been extended numerous times through the years, and it ran continuously from 1996 until it expired at the beginning of this year, because a compromise could not be made amongst interested parties at the end of the legislative session last year. So earlier we had a window where the city of Clovis had an opportunity to expand, but the law requires that if you're going to expand past your 1996 limit, you would have to go to a vote of the people. So, that is why the Clovis 500 Club was asking the city for this consideration. In the meantime, it is right. It is AB 341 by Assemblymember Ramos, has been introduced. It has gone off the Assembly floor and is now pending in the Senate. And he recently put in amendments that would basically retroactively cancel any expansion a city did in this window. And kind of looking at the legality of it, it would cause further question of, spending all this money on the election, and then should it pass, having the possibility of it being, retroactively taken away. While the Clovis 500, was interested in this, this pending legislation definitely does throw a wrench into things. So at this point, giving this pending legislation, we would just ask that maybe you could direct staff and we could do, I guess, further research on this issue, before we brought it back to the city for final consideration.
Thank you. I was just trying to read the language from the Legislative Council here as quickly as I could in the smallest font possible. Okay, so your request tonight is to maybe continue your research and not act on this request tonight to call a special election, or I know this is just direction, but you're going to continue to work on it as your request, and you could bring it back if you decide to move forward. Is that right?
Yeah, if you could direct, city staff and city attorney to to look at this and kind of give us their thoughts and then move from there.
Okay. Thank you, Jared. Any questions for Jared?
I had one quick question.
All right. There's a question from Councilmember Basco. Can you hear him? Matt,
yes.
Go ahead.
Just real quick, in reading this assembly bill, without going to a vote, you could expand 2 tables per year. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the current legislation would allow a city who has 20 tables or less, for example, like Clovis, to expand 2 tables every 4 years for a total of 10 tables over 16 years. So it would allow the Clovis 500 Club to go from 20 to 30 tables. And so that over a 16-year period. So that is a part that, would be helpful because it would allow the city to expand without an election. But obviously it's not as much as Fresno has, but some is better than none.
So and that would only have to go through council approval?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Any questions for Jared? Oh, go ahead, Vaughn.
My thought is probably more than what you were asking for, because I think you're asking to be at 51 so we can match Fresno. And my thought is, why stop there? Why not be the best in the Central Valley? If people are going to play cards, why don't they all come here? Why don't we be the stop? We be the place. And so, in other words, what's your dream? Let's do that, so that way you have it in place. So this is only if it goes forward. So that's my thinking. I'm good with the 51, but I always say, right now they're half a block, I don't know, a couple blocks down on the 168 from you. And so, let's be the best. So just something to put in your head there. Thank you.
Thanks, Vaughn. Leave it to Vaughn. Free enterprise at its best. Anything else up for the council? Anyone else? Thank you, Jared. I don't think there are any more questions. Anybody else in the audience wanting to comment or online? Is that the only comment online?
That's the only one online.
All right, thanks. So I'll bring it back to the council.
Lynn, I have a question.
Yeah.
For the city attorney, when did ex post facto law become passé?
It's a new thing.
It's certainly untested, I think, in both realms. We've talked about tonight, so.
This is like the second or third thing that's come up that's retroactive, which I'm thinking, that's just not constitutional. My concern, and I don't disagree with Vaughn, if we can do 51 tables, great. The problem is the police department isn't ready for that. You have to have staff to do all the backgrounds, then you have to have oversight on the gaming. And at 51 tables, depending on what kind of games they're playing, there's a game Pi Gal. And if you have, it's either played with cards or tiles, I think we're only doing cards in Clovis now. And I was part of the generation of our last ordinance. And we specifically excluded what's called backline betting, because you can have 10 people at the table and another 30 around the table betting on the game. And I was at the Club 101 up in San Jose on duty.
Yes, I'm sure. Thank you for clarifying.
And they had $10,000 on the table, and the game was over in 75 seconds. And there were like 35 people, and that was at 10 in the morning. That specific game, as I understand it, is a late night, early morning game when we are at our lowest staffing level. So I don't have a philosophical problem with them going to 51 tables once we resolve our police department staffing issue. But other than that, I couldn't go for it. That's all I have.
Did you have another comment?
Yeah, sort of along the line with what Drew's commenting on there, I would obviously want to have input from public safety, just what the current situation is with the card room there. Is that an issue? Is it not an issue? I would agree with Vong just on the free enterprise side of it as far as, the thing that struck me from the part in the packet was the letter from the attorney we heard from referencing the amount of revenues it generates for the city. It's significant. And to allow them to increase that kind of going back to the previous conversation about the potential of a public safety tax, that's one avenue that we as a city can pursue, can assist, whatever our role could be that would be beneficial to the city. So I would be philosophically in line with wanting to see this pursued. But then just as far as the police component of the staffing issue, just from a business perspective, this is not something I would imagine that the 500 Club could do overnight. This would be a years-long process because they can't even accommodate, to my understanding, many more tables at their current location, so they'd have to find new property, they'd have to go through all of those. So I would like to think that there could be a process that we could kind of participate in with them as that went forward. So if this is something that moves forward, I think there's ways that we can address some of Councilmember Bessinger's concerns and all of that in a way that still would be overall beneficial for the city.
All right, so one more?
But, with regards to calls for service, I recall when this came forward a while back, we actually charged the 500 Club a higher tax rate because of calls for service. So we get extra, yet from that hearing several years back now, the number of calls we anticipate were so little. So in other words, we're getting monies in which we are not servicing specifically for them. And so that's why I say, if we use the funds for that as, I don't know what they have to do internally with regards to overseeing the games, as stated, there's plenty of money. Now, are we using it someplace else? Potentially, because it goes into the general fund. So I don't see that as an issue. I think we are doing our due diligence, taxing them more than what we tax other businesses for that. My question, John, is what is the drop-dead date for this to happen, for it to get an election in November?
Thank you for asking. So it's actually a relatively short window in that we're now into April. I think it's August 7th or something like that, with that we would have to have all the information to the county as far as calling the special election. So we're in a 3-month window. So staff will take direction from the city council to continue to work with the 500 Club, but it's going to have to be pretty darn quick. And staff is still proposing that the 500 Club pay for the election itself. And with the big unknown of the AB 341, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
Are there any thoughts on who to pay for this? Staff recommendation is the 500 Club. Anybody have a different thought than that?
No.
Okay, so thank you. So I think the direction is proceed, work with Jared. If they want to proceed with it, it's their call, but we will. So Jared, I think that if you're still there, this falls on you all as the sort of applicant or the requester of this to let staff know your interest, and I think we'll do our part to get it ready, and that will include public safety and knowing what's possible and what's the added burden, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but the added burden of 31 more tables on law enforcement, all of those issues that need to be addressed. And I think if the 500 Club wants to proceed and is willing to pay for it, then seems like we're all thinking that's an okay thing. Except Vaughn, who wants 151 tables. That's not the request today, Vaughn. Hold on.
Thank
all
you.
right, is that helpful?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Anything else from you? Are you still there? Okay. Well, somebody tell them what we said.
I'm here. Thank you.
All right. So anything else, any final words you want to add, Jerry? You heard our direction to staff?
No, well put. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, next item is receive and file General Services Department update. Shauna?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm here to give you an overview of the General Services Department. Our motto is, we exist to assist. And I have most of our department managers here in case you have any questions that I can't answer. All right, well, General Services is a little unusual. It is comprised of some pretty diverse types of divisions. The 3 divisions are Personnel Risk Management, and I'm going to get into each of these a little bit more in detail, Department Support, and then Community Services. All 3 blue boxes are Community Services, which is Senior Center, Recreation, and Public Transit. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these. So first of all, this is Personnel Risk Management, and our team there from the Personnel Risk Management Division. We have only 8.5 people, I guess you could say, who take care of all of these items on this list and then some. They are the frontline assistants for all the applicants, employees, and management staff for anything that they need. They process around 5,000 employment applications annually, so that's about 400 or so a month. They do all the tests, the interviews, background checks. PD does their own background checks and fire, but they do the rest. They schedule the physicals, the drug tests, complete new employee onboarding when somebody starts, including state-required training, benefit information, rules and policies, and providing the bargaining units with time to meet with new employees. That's as required. All of the workers' compensation claims are handled through the office, but referred to our third-party administrator of AIMS. And the city staff works with AIMS and departments to process all of those claims and help the employees. Also work with all the city departments to reduce overall risk, liability risk. And then when we do have claims, such as vehicle accidents, trips and falls, property damage claims, personal injury claims, we handle the processing of some of them, and others are handled by the Central San Joaquin Valley Risk Management Authority. Also, the whole division promotes open communications and a good working relationship with our 9 bargaining units. And they do tons of trainings, a lot of required state trainings, trainings for managers, trainings for line staff, safety trainings. And then we publish guides for leads and policies. There's a lot of written information out there. There's an annual health fair with flu shots, a blood drives, Toastmasters Public Speaking Club is offered. It was originally started in this division, but it's kind of taken its own legs now. And then some wellness classes like exercise and yoga. If you'll see up there, the department budget, it says $41 million. That's not just us. That is covering all of the PERS costs. It gets filtered through us, and all of the health insurance, vision, dental, everything is included in that budget. Some of the challenges for us in this division, of course, increased liability costs. That's really skyrocketed lately. Division staffing and some room to put them. They're kind of tight in there and the lack of space. And then impact of all the new California laws that require additional work for them when new employees start or additional trainings. Next is department support. So department support is comprised of facilities maintenance and purchasing. A lot of the purchasing is decentralized, but this purchasing section does take care of things that are citywide, like our copiers and our custodial contracts and office supplies, things like that. So there's 6 staff, and they maintain 483,111 total square feet of facilities at 38 locations. We have 167 pieces of air conditioning and 2,846 solar panels. The purchasing staff, like I had said, is decentralized, but they do handle some of these things. The biggest challenge, let me talk about the budget. So the budget, when it's talking about $8,992,000. That includes all of the PG&E costs everywhere, and then any projects. So they, besides maintaining things, they'll also do some projects. Some of them small, some of them a little bit larger. Really large ones go through CIP, but that includes additional projects as well, or even things that are contracted out sometimes for projects that are a little bit larger than what our 6 folks can handle. So increased power costs, that's a big one for us right now. Division staffing, as new buildings are adding, we're adding the new senior center and transit building, and another fire station was added. In the next few years, as those are no longer under warranty, then our staff is going to need to be doing work on that. And then keeping up with deferred maintenance. There's always something that needs to be fixed. Next is community services. And Amy oversees those 3 sections. This is Amy Hant, Senior Center, Transit, and Rec. And then under Senior Center, Transit, and Rec, these are our managers here: Brian, Bethany, Nick, and Susanna. So we'll talk about each of them individually. So first of all is Senior Services. I think most of you are familiar with senior services, but for the benefit of everybody, it's an active adult center. It's a recreation center for seniors. You only have to be 50. There are tons of classes, learning opportunities. We do trips and special events and seminars. So, and we're building a new senior center, which is really exciting. So the senior center that we have right now is 10,500 square feet. The new one should be about 25,000 for us, and then 4,000 square feet for a health clinic. The biggest challenges we have, of course, providing financially sustainable programs. And moving our operation into the new center at Landmark, it's not really a challenge, it's kind of exciting, but it's going to be a lot of work. And then maintaining quality staff. Now, the budget that you see there, there's only 3 full-time staff members. There's a bunch of extra help staff that are mostly instructors. So they'll come and teach a class for an hour or 2. And the budget of $1.359 million includes $660,000 in debt service on the new building, which we've already started paying for 2 years. And then we do have some revenue. So I broke out the budget a little bit, and this was this year's budgeted amount, not how we're going to end, but it'll still give you an idea. We do have some revenue as well, $334,000, but you get an idea of where it goes. So the biggest piece of the pie, the green one, that says general service charges, $813, that's where the $660,000 is. That's where the biggest part goes. And then salary and benefits. And then not a lot of money for other stuff. You know, our special events, for instance, that's $23,000. We usually have about $20,000 in revenue to offset it. So it just gives you an idea. And we are utilizing 1.4% of the discretionary general fund for senior services. And you've all been in the new building, so you kind of recognize some of this. But these are some pictures of the new senior center, and it's coming along. All right, next is recreation. Recreation has programs for all ages, you know, anywhere from toddler to some of the senior programs are actually held at the rec center. We have the rec center on Clovis and Dakota. We have the skate park. We have the batting cages, batting range on Sunnyside. And then we offer some programs at some of the different parks as well. The budget is $1,255,400. We only have 3 full-time staff and 30 extra help staff, mostly people that run the programs, basketball and such. So we have 1 supervisor and 2 employees. Really, really less staff than we need for that particular division. To give you a feel for the budget for recreation, the largest piece of the pie is salary and benefits, part-timers, as well as our full-timers. And then our general service charges here, the second biggest piece, is mostly things like power and computer charges and, you know, things like that all buildings are charged, insurance. We do have to pay our officials. We pay them to come and be reps for our activities. But we also have a lot of parents that help out. We do have revenue. Right now, this year was $391,000, but we are looking really at estimate to close at about $500,000. So we're bringing in more than we had thought. One of the programs is adult softball, which is out at one of the parks, and that one brings in a lot of money. One thing to note, we did a little research, Brian did, and in 2007, 2008, we had 5 full-time positions, and we spent $7.14 per citizen on recreation programs. In 2018-19, because that was the year before everything went weird, we spent $4.68 per citizen on recreation programs, so almost half. This budget is showing $5.38 per citizen on recreation programs. So you can see we never recovered anywhere close to where we were in 2007, 2008. All right, and then lastly is transit. I think some of you are familiar with transit. We'll go over it a little bit. We have 2 different kinds of service. We have stage line, which is where you go to the bus stop and you catch the bus and you ride it on a predetermined route. And then we have roundup, which is a dial-a-ride service for people with a disability. Oh, I just thought of something I forgot to mention. Recreation is using 1% of the general fund also, a little bit less than 1%. Or a little bit more than 1%. So back to transit. Roundup is dial-a-ride for people with a disability. We pick them up at their house and take them to their destination. We pick them up within our service area, which is basically Clovis city limits, but we do take people as far south as Kings Canyon, west to west, and then downtown Fresno. Our service is still free. We started doing that during the pandemic and then kept doing it. The amount that we were bringing in for fares, it cost us more to count it and handle it than it was to collect the fares. And really industry-wide, there are more and more agencies looking at going fare-free. It's just more than work than it's worth. We have about 65 or so bus drivers and van drivers and trainers and office staff. Vehicle washers, it's a 7-day-a-week operation. Right now we have 34 buses and 12 vans, and we got a bunch more vans on order. I want to say 8, maybe. And then we have Dolly the trolley. Our biggest challenges, of course, is funding, compliance with new innovative clean transit rule. We've already talked about that once. And then right now there's a huge supply chain delay on anything that we order, and then everything is so much more expensive than ever before. All of our manufacturers are having trouble getting parts, getting things delivered here. Like, it's just difficult. Even when we have something like one of our 2 electric buses that's down, it has to be shipped off. It takes months to get fixed. It comes back, it's still not fixed, and then we have to send it back out. So things just are, it's a struggle when you're ordering things to try to get the equipment that you need here in a timely fashion. Usually when you order a bus, it takes a year anyhow. Now it's taking even longer. One good thing is we are building a new transit center too. One of the things that staff is working on right now is redesigning all of the routes to make them more efficient. They haven't really been completely revamped in probably 10 or 15 years. So I sat down with Amy the other day. We went over some of her proposed routes. They're still kind of vetting them out, and then they'll take them out to the public, show them to all of you, and that will be redesigned in line with the new transit hub. So it's a place where we can do routes and then also make them more streamlined so that they're straighter, less loops. You're taking less time to get across town. Their thought on this was that they want to be able to get from one side to the other in 45 minutes or less. And that's all I have. That I'm open for questions, and the fabulous people behind me can answer anything I can't.
Well, thank you, Shauna, and thank you, fabulous people behind her.
Yep.
Appreciate all the great work. So what questions? Fong.
Thank you, Shauna. You know, with NEM 3.0, does that affect commercial? Does it do solar? And
with
so
what?
Does it affect us at all with regards to, I know we probably don't generate more than we use, but does that affect us much?
Stephen, you were just talking to me about that.
Yeah, so the NEM 3.0 is coming up.
Come on up.
It is April 15th is the date, and
say it through the speaker so people can hear it.
Sorry.
Yes, turn it on. There you go. Yes.
So, April 15th, the NEM 3.0 comes into effect. That's the whole reason why we had the ESCO come in front of you guys tonight, to get that approval to move forward with planning for solar on Fire Station 6 as well as Landmark Square. If we do not get that in, which we're getting the application in now, then yes, we would be hit by that. We would have to have batteries. There's all kinds of other requirements that I have not fully looked into. So I don't have all the details on 3.0 because I'm trying to stay in the 2.0 category where it's more beneficial to us.
Yeah.
The cost that we get back from PG&E is a lot less. It's, in my opinion, it's all a bunch of negatives for this, for this NEM 3.0. So we're trying to do everything we can to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's grandfathered in, and so just looking at that, see what plans we have and how it's going to affect us, but thank you for that. And then, you know, for rec, Shauna, have we ever tried concessions in the past, and is that something that never worked? And
we have, especially at the batting cages. There were certain things that we could do without getting the health department too involved, like pre-made food that you could just microwave and such. It just didn't pan out. Okay. We have vending machines at some of the sites, but people didn't utilize it enough to make it worthwhile.
Okay.
Would you agree, Brian? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, you're just getting a Fresno Street Eats out in some of the places. But I don't know how much revenue that brings in. Now, with regards to transit, I had the opportunity to tour with Shauna and some of the drivers on Roundup and on Stage Line, and I just wanted to publicly commend our drivers and Amy, how you run everything on such a, you know, small budget, and all the staff, and so I appreciate that. We went kind of during when school was getting out, and I think we forget how much benefit it is for young people who don't have a ride and whose parents are working hard, and how so many of them are in our buses. It's a safe place. They're going to where they're going, and I look forward to sort of the new routes, which will make it more efficient in working and to where people go the most. And so, thank you for that. I encourage, the rest of the council to, ride on our buses so that we know how our residents are feeling when they're there. I just feel like it is a cultural, educational, that we're just not a transit thinking community, but once you're in it, it's okay, it works well if you rely on it, and how we can partner or work more to get people on our buses and Roundup. And I think with regards to Roundup, there's such a population that has the highest needs in our community. And the staff are so professional, and they know our riders, that they're conversing with them, they're making sure it's safe, and to understand the whole process and what it takes to get our residents safely to where it needs to go. I think that's such a great service that we have. So
thank you. Bethany just informed Amy today, and she told me, Bethany's the supervisor that oversees operations, that we had the highest ridership on Roundup first quarter this year, correct?
Yep.
Ever.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fong. Anything else for Shauna? Thank you. I would like, in honor of Brian, to get back to that recreation investment. I think one of the things that I think as we look ahead at 10 years as a city is investments in those quality of life issues are really important, because that is our differentiator. So I personally am looking forward to some pickleball courts, Brian, because that's what old people do. These two are really upset that they're qualifying for the senior center now. Super sorry about that, Diane. I think you have a ways to go, but
you all can tell me just what it's like, and I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so I do think that, we have not invested in new rec facilities in a while, and I think if we think 10 years out, what kind of place do we want to be? And I think it's that kind of place. So I look forward to that conversation as we start to think about our city's longer-term vision and budget, and so I think people count on us. We have wonderful trails, so that's certainly an investment, but I think there's a few more things we could add to our collection that would be really great reasons for people to live in Clovis.
I think you'll hear that at the 14th meeting, probably.
I hope so, because I'm going to say it myself, so I might hear it twice. Great. Thank you all, and thank you all to the folks from, do you want to say something?
He had his light on for a minute.
Does it have to do with chickens?
It's gonna have something to do with it.
But he can't talk, he's lost his talking privileges?
No, actually, I just wanted to say thank you to Shauna and Amy. They were, with us at Baker to Vegas, with the police department, and they do an amazing job helping the team. They're out there the whole night, running around from start to finish, and, so it's very much appreciated.
That's awesome.
They're very much a part of the Clovis team, that's for sure, that's out there. So I just wanted to say thank you for
You're welcome.
all your help.
I'm really tired.
That's why I said it now instead of council comments, because I figured you were ready to go.
Because I might nod off.
Yes.
Okay.
That's great. All right, thank you all. Thanks for being here, all of you. Thanks for all the work that you do. All right, moving to council items. The first is to consider the approval to submit a letter of opposition for Assembly Bill 742. Assemblymember Jackson limiting the use of police canines. Mr. Holt.
So I have three items this evening, and I'll go relatively quickly, but Assembly Bill 742 was introduced to end the use of canine units for arrest, apprehension, and crowd control. It would continue to allow uses as long as it would not include the use of biting. In communicating with the police department, the use of police canines has proven to be a valuable tool in assisting our police officers in keeping our community safe and secure. AB 742 would impose unnecessary restrictions on the use of police canines, and staff is recommending the City Council authorize the letter of opposition be sent. That concludes staff's report.
Thanks, John. Are there questions for John on this piece of legislation or the action to submit a letter of opposition?
I just have one question. I noticed that it's being addressed to Assemblymember Dr. Corey Jackson, who I believe is chair of the Public Safety Committee, where it already passed on March 22nd. So is this something that we would then consider addressing to the Appropriations Committee, where it's heading next?
We can. That's just the direction we get from the league when they provide it. And last week, they got out of public safety, but it would still add us to the list of cities in opposition.
Okay, and is there any option to send it to all members of that committee, or does it just, maybe this is a rookie question,
Yeah, no,
does it just go to the chairperson?
No, we can send it anywhere, and Rebecca on my staff knows exactly where to send it.
Okay.
Because we get in touch with Raj and clarify where it should go, and then we'll send it accordingly.
Is there direction, consensus to send a letter of opposition to this piece of legislation?
Can I ask just, Councilmember Bessinger, maybe you have reported out already, the League Public Safety Committee is opposed or supporting or neutral on this one? Do you know?
We were opposed to it.
Opposed to, okay.
And when you read it, it talks about using dogs to catch slaves. You can take this so far afield. But what they're doing, if you prohibit the use of unleashed canines to apprehend somebody, why have canines? Except for, very limited circumstances. And canines are such a force multiplier. And, I mean, Matt was a canine officer, and if you wanted to be promoted at Clovis PD, you had to have a dog, apparently, at one point. And, or to the command staff, anyway. And that's a joke, by the way. But this is such, yeah.
We'll just leave it at, yes, it's such. It's just such. All right, so I think we are in support of canines in Clovis, and so I think there is consensus to send a letter of opposition to this piece of legislation. Next up is a letter of support for Assembly Bill 1067. This is Mr. Patterson's legislation, Gavin's Law. John?
Real quickly, Assemblymember Patterson has reintroduced the Gavin's Law. Gavin's Law was named after a Clovis Unified Vice Principal, Gavin Gladding, who was killed in a hit-and-run accident on Friant, if you recall, in September of 2018. Bottom line is that Gavin's Law would increase the penalties for fatal hit-and-run drivers. Staff is recommending a letter of support be sent. That concludes staff's report.
Thank you, John. Questions on this piece of legislation or direction on submitting this letter of support? Any comments?
Support.
Support?
Yeah.
Support.
All right, so proceed with a letter of support on this. And the final advocacy item tonight is letter of support for Assembly Bill 1708.
And 1708 is a proposition, Prop 47 reclassified certain nonviolent offenses from felonies to misdemeanors, which resulted in shorter sentences for some offenders and reduced the state's prison population. AB 1708 would reform Prop 47 to increase accountability for serial theft and serial responsive intervention programs that divert people away from both crime and prison.
Okay.
If passed, the bill would send the issue, I lost my page, sorry.
That's all right. It's like, wait, you weren't supposed to stop talking yet.
If passed, the bill would send the issue to the voters for approval at the next statewide election, which is November of 2024. And to highlight, the bill is co-sponsored by the California Police Chiefs Association as well as the California Retailers Association. Staff is looking for authorization to send a letter of support. That concludes staff's report, and we're available for questions.
Comments on this one?
Lynn, the League of Cities Public Safety Committee has taken a position supporting this law as introduced.
Any comments, support in this? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you.
Proceed. Yeah, you bet. Anything else, John, under city manager comments?
No, I don't.
All right. Council comments. Matt?
Just that we went to Baker to Vegas over this weekend, got home this morning, so Clovis Police Department team was there, and they did outstanding. They actually
Did you run along, or what did you?
I drive the van.
Good. I thought that's what Amy and Shauna did.
There's several vans.
Did he really help, or was it just like he was there, like, he did help? Wow.
I drive the graveyard shift.
Okay. That's a good call. Yeah, I shouldn't have asked. I'm so sorry. All right.
I was at Baker.
Yeah, so no, it was just awesome
That's
to see Clovis PD get out there again and do their thing. And like I said, they finished 12th in their division, which qualified them for a mug, which is what you're always going for.
A mug?
Yeah. And, I mean, there's 243 teams running. They're from all over the world. New York PD had 2 teams there, LAPD, LASO, and, you know, it's always a big deal when, you know, Clovis PD can put their own team together with people from Clovis PD and go out there and compete with the big agencies. So just wanted to say it was a great deal.
Well done. Well done. Diane.
Since our last meeting, I had the opportunity to tour our surface water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant, and I just want to commend staff. I think that's one of my favorite things about Council Commons is how often we get to commend our staff because they're absolutely outstanding. But it was a very informative tour and learned a lot, was able to ask a lot of questions, and so really enjoyed that. Maybe that sounds a little weird, but it was great. And then I've just had some various meetings with community members in that, and again, I think almost every single meeting I've ever taken, whether it's with, you know, staff again, or just random community members or people who do business with the city, the glowing reports of what it's like to work with the city of Clovis, it doesn't blow me away because you kind of know to expect it, but it's always just still such a great thing to be able to hear and be a part of. And so, again, just major kudos to everybody who really does such a great job in being, whether it's the face of the city out in front on things, or whether it's handling things behind the scenes, which is the majority of what goes on. The people who have interactions with the city of Clovis, like I say, almost to a person, have nothing but fantastic things to say, and that just always puts a smile on my face and makes me anxious for the next time I get to talk to somebody about Clovis.
Thanks, Diane. Drew?
Nothing to report.
Vaughn?
We had a joint meeting with CUSD. I think good discussion. I think there'll be something coming up later on council for the rest of us to consider with regards to the Terry Bradley Center. So there was a very good discussion and some issues coming forward that we will have to decide. And then had a transit ride along, so did that. And then I also went to the Vietnam War Veterans Memorial event on the 29th. And compared to last year, it must have tripled in the number of attendees. I think the committee that heads it has reached out and to the community at large, and a lot of them have never really been. I know it's to the district, but just to Clovis and to how warm we are speaking to sort of what Councilmember Pierce just said, for them to see how and what Clovis does, and to just visit Old Town and to just stay there. I think it was a very nice event, and there's a moment in which they recognize even widows of deceased Vietnam War veterans, and so that they put them in a special section and to recognize everyone there. And if the public has never seen, there's a Vietnam War, kind of like a map that's about the size of this room, in which you go and sign where you served. And I think that's just sort of, you know, amazing how that little piece have been growing. The number of names that have signed it has grown. So just want to report that out.
Thanks, Vaughn. I have a couple items tonight. One is staying in the legislation. Did we take an action on Arambula's AB 558 on the makeup of FCTA?
A position, no, we have not.
So if we could either bring that back next week, or if, either way, maybe we could just direct staff if the council's comfortable. But that is a piece of legislation that Mr. Arambula introduced to change the makeup of FCTA, to add, I think, 4 public members, an education member from the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, a youth member appointed by the governor, an environmental justice person appointed by, I can't remember. Anyway, there was 4 positions, and FCTA, I think, let me back up. The next FCTA meeting is April 19th, and that's the day of the committee hearing, so the letter needs to get there before April 19th. So I think that the staff will send a letter on FCTA. It's really Mr. Arambula's attempt to say we don't include voices of others in the work of transportation. And I think the concern is it's going to tip the balance of the group to non-elected members accountable to no one. And I think it's a really bad idea. It's not unlike what we did with the Conservancy Board and the Air Board. So there's a trend going on. You can pass legislation to renew or to revoke things you've already decided, and you can just appoint people. So I would strongly encourage this council to at least direct staff, in terms of timing, to send a letter to oppose this piece of legislation. He's also not talked to anyone on FCTA, which I think is super disrespectful. You don't get to make up legislation and not talk to anybody else. So how do I feel about it? I think it's a really bad precedent, which is, he seems good at that. So I would just ask my colleagues, we haven't had a chance to weigh in, but I'd like to have staff, we can either bring it back next time, or we can direct staff now to send that letter. Thoughts on it, Diane?
I would just say, due to the time constraints, I would be fine agreeing with you to direct staff to go ahead and issue that in opposition of Assemblymember Arambula's idea.
I'm sorry. I agree. I sent the city manager some draft letters in opposition of what Arambula is doing to the Air Board. Same thing, doesn't meet with anybody.
I know.
You know,
Long? Okay.
Yeah, I support it. I
Matt?
support the opposition. Great.
So can you, John, can you draft a letter? You can put my signature on it if you want, but if you need more information, Mike Leonardo probably has a sample.
We do. And then, can I go ahead and add the CARB to it?
Do you want to add the Air Board, same action on the Air Board discussion to add people?
Same issue?
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, thanks. Yeah. Also want to report on a COG meeting that I attended last Thursday night. Two big issues on the agenda were, without the sordid history of high-speed rail, some years ago, FCTA set aside $25 million out of the Innovation, New Technology sort of fund for high-speed rail, thinking that we needed to have cash available as an incentive for the state to locate a heavy maintenance facility in Fresno. Over the years, obviously, that has not occurred. It now doesn't appear that we are a destination for that maintenance facility. Some years, not too many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we thought we needed to have land, so we, FCTA voted to spend $500,000 on land options, so we would have that as an incentive. That didn't seem to really work. So the question before COG was to free up the $20 million of that $25 million to go to the grade separation project for the city of Fresno. That was the agreement, that if it's not spent on high-speed rail, it would go back to grade separation. That probably is where it came from, sorry. So anyway, the COG did vote to do that. So just so that you are aware, we reserved $4 million in case there's something the state might need, utility infrastructure or something out there, but that was the action of COG. So $20 million additionally to get kids to those community colleges that we talked about today, so they could cross Blackstone and McKinley without taking their life in their hands. And the second conversation is COG is going to do some work around safe routes to schools. It's a gap, I think, in our county that cities have their own regulations on development, but there's lots of gaps where kids can't get to school safely. So COG will do a study, and they will have a task force. They asked me to be the chair of the task force, which I'd love to do. So I think the COG can do a better job of filling the gaps across the county, so no kid has to walk to school in the street or in the dirt or whatever is required. So I think that's a really positive move for COG. So just wanted to report that. And then my final item, I would like to ask the council, I've never, I don't think I've participated in this in 20-some years doing this, but there's always time for everything. So you will recall, Diane, you were on vacation the night we did the item with Stallion Development, the 12-unit project on Alluvial, with Mr. Armand. I don't know why I cannot say that name. Zarkarian. And I had a chance, Renee and I had a chance to meet with him following that meeting. And because that item failed on a 3-1 or 2-2 technical denial? 3-1. And as one of the individuals who voted no on it, I have since, after talking to Armand and learning some additional information about his development and some of our concerns about Alluvial Avenue and the elevations and the process that he'd gone through, I would like to ask the council to consider bringing that back item back to us for reconsideration, to look at it again as a council. I think it would be fair to have a 5-member council so he would be able to have everybody weigh in. And I think he's making the changes on the elevation that we've talked about, which was, for me, a problem. So there's lots of things that happened that night that just weren't, it just didn't, I don't think it was the best hearing for his item that he brought to us. So that is my request, to ask that we reconsider that item, bring it back to a date uncertain, right? Date uncertain.
Uncertain.
And then if we agree to that tonight, then staff will meet with Mr. Armand, and then he will bring it back to us at some point when the staff is ready. Are there questions or comments?
I'm meeting with him tomorrow morning.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm meeting with him tomorrow afternoon. I think there's a trend. Okay, really? I met with him first. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So I'm interested. I'm looking for direction from my colleagues if you would be willing to reconsider that item, to bring it back to us with the new information. I think we'll get more information on Alluvial Avenue improvements that are in the next capital budget, so that could improve that. Looking at elevation and the other question. One of my other issues was we didn't have a chance to see what was happening on the corner of Sunnyside and was Alluvial where the church is? So I think there are renderings of that, which were just not clear, at least to me. So anyway, I think we've learned some new information. I think we can do a little bit better job and take another look at this project. So that's my request to each of you, if you would consider bringing it back for reconsideration. Scott, did I miss anything?
No, and the council, just so you know, the council doesn't have official rules on reconsideration of items, so it's really at your pleasure to do so. We would need a consensus from a majority of you tonight to direct staff to bring it back.
Thoughts?
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
Matt? You're okay just bringing it back? Okay. All right. All right, so we will do that, and so staff now will take it from here and work with the applicant to bring that project back. Thank you all very much. And that concludes that. So I think with that, we are going to adjourn into closed session. Will there be action to report out, Scott?
I'm thinking.
Thinking.
No, we're not asking for any official action tonight.
All right, so we will go into closed session as the item is printed on the agenda, and there will be no action to report. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.